The morning air was crisp and cold as Park Tae-min walked along the mountain trail. His boots made soft sounds on the fallen leaves. He had been a forest ranger for 5 years now, and he knew these mountains better than anyone. Every tree, every rock, every hidden path was familiar to him. Tae-min stopped and looked at his watch. It was still early, just past 7 in the morning. He liked starting his patrol before sunrise. The mountains were peaceful then, and he could think clearly. His military days were behind him now, but he still woke up early out of habit. He continued, walking up the steep path. Birds were starting to sing in the trees above him. The sound always made him feel calm. This was better than the noisy city where he used to live. Much better than the army base where he had worked as a medic for 8 years. Something strange caught his eye. Through the trees he saw a bright glowing light. It was not the sun was still hidden behind the mountains. This light was different. It was blue and white, and it was flickering. Tae-min felt curious. In all his years patrolling these mountains, he had never seen anything like this. He left the main trail and pushed through the thick bush toward the light. The closer he got, the stranger it became. The light was coming from what looked like a big hole in the ground. Smoke was rising from it. The air smelled like burning metal and something else he could not identify. When he reached the edge of the hole, Tae-min stopped and stared. What he saw made no sense. Twisted pieces of metal were scattered everywhere. They were silver and smooth, not like any metal he had seen before. Some pieces were still glowing with that strange blue light. This was not a normal crash. Cars did not come up this high in the mountains. Helicopters were rare here too. But this metal looked too advanced, too strange to be from any vehicle he knew. Tae-min climbed down into the hole carefully. His army training kicked in. Always check for survivors first. Always be ready to help. He moved pieces of debris out of his way. The metal was warm but not burning hot. As he got deeper into the wreckage, he heard something that made him freeze. A soft moan. Someone was hurt and trapped under the metal. Tae-min worked faster now. He pulled away more pieces of debris, following the sound. What he found made him question if he was dreaming. Under a large piece of twisted metal, he saw an arm. But it was not a normal human arm. The skin was pale blue, almost white. It was smooth and seemed to glow slightly in the dim light. Tae-min had seen many injured people during his time as an army medic. He had learned not to panic, no matter how bad things looked. But this was different. This was impossible. He pulled away more metal. Slowly, he uncovered the person trapped underneath. It was a woman, but unlike any woman he had ever seen. Her skin was that same pale blue color all over. Her hair was long and silver, not gray like an old person, but actually silver like metal. It seemed to shine even in the shadows. Her face was human-like but different. Her features were more delicate, more perfect than any human face. Her eyes were closed, but he could see they were larger than normal human eyes. Tae-min shook his head. This could not be real. But the woman was breathing. She was alive and hurt. And that was all that mattered right now. He checked her for injuries using the skills he had learned in the army. Her left leg was trapped under heavy metal. There was blue blood on her forehead. Blue blood. That should have scared him, but somehow it did not. The woman opened her eyes. Tae-min had never seen eyes like hers. They were large and bright, almost glowing. The color was like deep ocean water mixed with starlight. When she looked at him, he felt something strange in his chest. She tried to speak, but the sounds were not Korean or English or any language he knew. Her voice was soft and musical, even though she was clearly in pain. Tae-min spoke gently to her. "Do not worry. I will help you. Try not to move." She did not understand his words, but she seemed to understand his tone. Her strange, beautiful eyes showed trust. She stopped trying to move and let him work. It took Tae-min almost an hour to free her leg from the metal. He was careful not to hurt her more. When he finally pulled her free, he could see her leg was badly injured but not broken. The woman tried to stand but fell back down. Tae-min caught her before she hit the ground. She was lighter than a human woman would be, and her skin felt warm. Despite its strange color, he looked around at the wreckage again. This was clearly not from Earth. The woman was not human. Everything logical in his mind told him to call the authorities. Report what he had found. Let scientists and government people handle this. But when he looked down at her face, he could not do it. She was hurt and scared. She needed help, not experiments. He had taken an oath as a medic to help injured people. Did it matter if she was not technically a person from Earth? The woman whispered something in her strange language. Her voice was getting weaker. She was losing consciousness again. Tae-Min made his decision. He would take her to his cabin. It was only a kilometer away, hidden deep in the forest. He could treat her injuries there. He could keep her safe until she was well enough to do whatever it was she needed to do. He gathered his medical supplies from his backpack and did basic first aid on her wounds. Then he carefully lifted her in his arms. She was so light, it was like carrying a sleeping child. As he climbed out of the crater, the woman opened her eyes one more time. She looked up at his face with those amazing eyes. Then she did something that surprised him. She smiled. It was a weak smile, but it was real. In that moment, Tae-Min knew he had made the right choice. Whatever she was, wherever she came from, she was someone who needed help. And he was someone who could give it. The walk back to his cabin felt longer than usual. The woman in his arms drifted in and out of consciousness. Sometimes she would whisper words he did not understand. Sometimes she would look up at him with those trusting eyes. By the time they reached his cabin, the sun was fully up. It was going to be a warm day. Tae-Min had no idea that this morning would change his life forever. He only knew that he had found someone who needed his help, and he was going to do everything he could to save her. Little did he know that years later, she would save him in return. Tae-Min's cabin was small but comfortable. It had one bedroom, a kitchen, and a living room with a fireplace. He had built most of the furniture himself during his first year as a forest ranger. The cabin was his safe place, far from other people. And their problems, now it had become a safe place for someone else too. He laid the alien woman on his bed and covered her with warm blankets. Her blue skin looked pale, almost white now. Her breathing was slow, but steady. That was good. In his army days, he had learned that steady breathing meant the patient would probably survive. Tae-Min cleaned her wounds carefully. The blue blood had stopped flowing, but the cuts needed proper care. He used his medical supplies to bandage her leg and the cut on her forehead. Her skin felt different under his hands. It was softer than human skin, and it seemed to glow very faintly in the dim light. For 3 days she slept. Tae-Min checked on her every few hours. He gave her water when she was awake enough to drink. He changed her bandages. He watched her, breathing, and counted her heartbeat. Her heart beat faster than a human heart, but it was regular and strong. On the 4th day, she opened her eyes and looked around the room. When she saw Tae-Min sitting in a chair next to the bed, she did not seem afraid. Instead, she looked curious. She tried to sit up, but her injured leg hurt too much. Tae-Min helped her lean against the pillows. She looked at him and pointed to herself. Nira, she said clearly. Tae-Min understood. That was her name. He pointed to himself. Tae-Min, he said. She tried to repeat it. Tae-Min. Her voice made his name sound like music. That was how their communication began. Nira was smart, very smart. Within a week, she had learned 20 Korean words. Tae-Min learned some words in her language too, though they were much harder to say. Nira drew pictures to explain things. She drew stars and planets to show where she came from. She drew what looked like a big ship with many smaller ships around it. Then she drew fire and explosions. Tae-Min understood that her ship had been attacked. She drew herself running to a smaller ship and flying away. Then she drew the small ship breaking and falling toward Earth. Her drawings were very good, almost like photographs. Tae-Min showed her his medical books and explained how he had treated her wounds. Nira looked at the pictures with great interest. Then she did something that amazed him. She placed her hands on her injured leg and closed her eyes. Her hands began to glow with a soft blue light. Tae-Min watched as the bruises on her legs slowly disappeared. The deep cuts became shallow scratches. In just a few minutes, her leg looked almost completely healed. Nira opened her eyes and saw Tae-Min staring. She looked worried, as if she thought he might be afraid of her now, but Taemin was not afraid. He was fascinated. How? He asked. Nira drew more pictures. She drew people like herself using the glowing hands to heal sick and injured people. She pointed to herself and then to him, making motions like she wanted to heal him too. Tae-min had old injuries from his army days. His back ached from carrying heavy equipment. His knee hurt when the weather was cold. He had learned to live with the pain. Nira touched his back with her glowing hands. The warmth spread through his muscles. Years of pain simply disappeared. When she touched his knee, the stiffness went away completely. Taemin felt better than he had in years. He looked at Nira with new respect. She was not just someone who needed help. She was someone who could give help too. As the days passed, their friendship grew stronger. Nira learned more Korean words. She helped Taemin around the cabin, even though she was still recovering. She was amazed by simple human things like matches and can openers. Tae-min learned that Nira was very interested in how things worked. She studied his radio for hours, drawing pictures of the inside parts. She looked at his solar panels and asked many questions with gestures and broken Korean words. One day, Nira pointed to his old generator. It had not worked for 2 years. Taemin had tried to fix it many times but always failed. Nira asked if she could try. She opened the generator and looked inside. Then she touched some of the parts with her glowing hands. When she was finished, she told Taemin to try starting it. The generator started immediately. It ran smoother and quieter than it ever had before. Taemin stared at Nira in amazement. She fixed his water pump too, and his old truck that had been broken for months. Everything she touched seemed to work better than before, but Nira did more than fix things. She made the cabin feel alive. She hummed strange, beautiful songs while she worked. She laughed at Taemin's jokes even when she did not fully understand them. She made simple meals taste better just by sharing them. Tae-min had lived alone for years. He had thought he liked it that way. But having Nira in his home made him realize how lonely he had been. After 3 weeks, Nira's injuries were completely healed. She was strong again. She could walk long distances without pain. Taemin knew what that meant. One evening, as they sat by the fireplace, Nira drew a new picture. It showed her walking away from the cabin. It showed Taemin standing alone in the doorway. "You have to go?" Taemin said quietly. Nira nodded. She drew more pictures, ships in the sky, people looking for her, danger coming to the cabin if she stayed too long. Tae-min understood. If her people found her here, they might think he was holding her prisoner. If human authorities found her, they would want to study her and ask questions. Either way, it would not be good for him or for her, but understanding did not make it easier. On her last night, Nira gave Taemin a gift. It was a small crystal, no bigger than his thumb. It was clear like glass, but it seemed to have light moving inside it. She drew pictures to show him how it worked. If he ever needed help, he should hold the crystal and think of her. It would send a message across space to wherever she was. "Promise me you will use it if you need help," she said in her careful Korean. "I promise," Taemin said. The next morning, Nira walked into the forest. Taemin watched from his doorway until she disappeared among the trees. He felt like part of his heart was walking away with her. 3 hours later, he saw a bright light in the sky. It moved too fast to be a plane and made no sound. He knew it was her ship, come to take her home. Taemin went back inside his cabin. It felt empty and quiet without Nira's presence. He put the crystal in a safe place and tried to return to his normal life, but nothing felt normal anymore. He had tasted what it was like to have a real friend, someone who understood him without words, someone who cared about his happiness. He did not know when he would see Nira again. He did not even know if he would see her again, but he kept the crystal safe, and he remembered his promise. 5 years passed slowly for Taemin. Every day felt the same. He woke up early, ate breakfast alone, and walked his patrol routes through the mountains. He checked on hikers and campers. He fixed broken trail signs. He wrote reports that nobody really read. At night, he sat by his fireplace and remembered Nira. He wondered where she was now. Was she safe? Was she happy? Did she ever think about their time together? The crystal sat on his kitchen table where he could see it every day. Sometimes it seemed to glow a little, but that might have been his imagination. He never activated it. What would he say? That he missed having a friend? That seemed selfish when she probably had important things to do among the stars. Tay-min tried to make friends with other people. He went to town once a week for supplies. He talked to the shop owners and other forest rangers. But every conversation felt empty. Nobody understood him the way Nira had understood him without words. Few women from town showed interest in him. Mrs. Lee the baker always gave him extra bread. Jung So-young, who worked at the post office, always smiled and asked about his day. But Taemin could not connect with them. How could he explain that his heart belonged to someone from another world? So he stayed alone in his mountain cabin. He read books and fixed things and watched the stars. He became known in town as the quiet ranger who kept to himself. People thought he was strange, but they respected him because he was good at his job. Everything changed on a cold Tuesday in March. Tae-min was eating dinner when his phone rang. The voice on the other end was his brother-in-law, Kim Jae-ho. He was crying. Tae-min, there has been an accident. Sora and we were driving home from the city. A drunk driver hit us. Sora is ... She is gone. I am in the hospital. The children. Someone needs to take care of the children. Taemin felt the world spin around him. His younger sister Sora was dead. She had been the only family member who still talked to him after he left the army and became a hermit in the mountains. Ra had 3 children. Boram and Do-hyun were 8-year-old twins. Little Yoonji was only 5. They were good children, but Taemin barely knew them. He saw them maybe twice a year when Sora brought them to visit his cabin. Jae-ho died 3 days later from his injuries. Suddenly, 3 young children had no parents. The social worker, Mrs. Park, explained the situation to Taemin at the hospital. There are no other relatives who can take them, she said. So Ra's parents died years ago. Jae-ho's family lives in America and cannot take 3 children. You are their only option, Mr. Park. Taemin looked through the window at the children sitting in the waiting room. Byoram was trying to be brave, but tears ran down his face. Do-hyun was angry and kept kicking his chair. Little Yoonji had not spoken a word since the accident. She just stared at nothing with empty eyes. I do not know how to take care of children, Taemin said honestly. They need you, Mrs. Park replied. The alternative is foster care, and it is hard to find families who will take 3 children together. They might be separated. Taemin thought about being separated from his sister when they were young. Even for a short time, it had been terrible. He could not let that happen to these children. I will take them, he said. Moving 3 traumatized children to a mountain cabin was harder than Taemin had imagined. The children were used to city life with computers and televisions and fast internet. Taemin's cabin had basic electricity and a slow internet connection that barely worked. Oram cried every night for his parents. Do-hyun was angry all the time. He broke things and shouted and refused to follow any rules. Little Yoonji stopped talking completely. She would not eat unless Taemin fed her like a baby. Taemin felt lost. In the army, he had known exactly what to do: fix the injured, follow orders, complete the mission. But children were not soldiers. They needed love and patience and understanding. And Taemin did not know how to give those things. He tried reading parenting books, but they did not help much. The books talked about normal children with normal problems. These children had lost everything. They were not normal problems. School was another challenge. The mountain school was small and simple. The children had been going to a fancy private school in the city. They were bored and frustrated with their new classes. Do-hyun got into fights with other students. Byoram was too sad to pay attention to lessons. Yoonji sat silently and drew dark pictures that worried her teacher. The other parents in the small mountain community whispered about Taemin. That strange ranger man does not know how to raise children, they said. Those poor kids need a real family. Taemin heard the whispers and they hurt. But what hurt more was knowing they were probably right. Months passed slowly. Taemin learned to cook simple meals and help with homework. He learned to wash tiny clothes and fix broken toys. But he could not fix the sadness in the children's hearts. Boram would sometimes sit next to him and ask why their parents had to die. Taemin had no answer. Duhayen's anger was getting worse. He ran away twice, though he never got far in the mountains. Yoonji still rarely spoke, and when she did, it was only to ask for her mommy. Taemin felt like he was failing them every day. These children needed more than he could give. They needed someone who knew how to love properly, how to heal broken hearts. One evening, as he watched Yoonji pick at her dinner without eating, Taemin remembered Nira's gentle healing touch. She had healed his physical pain so easily. He wondered if she could heal emotional pain too, but that was a foolish thought. Nira was probably on the other side of the galaxy. Even if she got his message, what could she do? She was an alien. She did not understand human children. Still, late at night when the children were sleeping, Taemin would take out the crystal and hold it in his hands. He never activated it, but holding it made him feel less alone. He needed help, but he was too proud to ask for it. He had made a promise to take care of these children, and he would keep that promise even if it killed him. What Taemin did not know was that his problems were about to get much worse, and when they did, his pride would no longer matter. He would need all the help he could get, even if it came from the stars. 6 months after the children came to live with Taemin, something terrible happened. It started with little Eun-G. One morning, Yoonji would not wake up for breakfast. When Taemin went to check on her, he found her shaking in her bed. Her whole body was moving in ways that scared him. Her eyes were open, but she could not see him. Tae-Min had seen seizures before during his army days. He knew what to do. He put Yoonji on her side and made sure she could breathe. He timed the seizure and waited for it to stop. When it ended, Yoonji was very weak. She could barely speak. Taemin carried her to his truck and drove as fast as he could to the hospital in town. Dr. Kim examined Yoonji for hours. He ran many tests. Blood tests, brain scans, everything he could think of. But he could not find what was wrong. Her brain activity is very strange, Dr. Kim told Taemin. I have never seen anything like this. We need to send her to a bigger hospital in the city. At the city hospital, the doctors were also confused. They had better equipment and more experience, but Agunji's illness was like nothing they had studied before. It seems to attack the nervous system, the head doctor explained, but we cannot identify what is causing it. We will try different treatments, but I must be honest with you. We do not know if they will work. Taemin stayed by Yoonji's bed day and night. She had more seizures, each one worse than the last. Between seizures, she was so weak she could barely open her eyes. Boram and Duhayen came to visit their little sister every day after school. They were scared and confused. Boram cried when he saw Yoonji with all the tubes and machines attached to her small body. Duhayen stopped being angry and became very quiet. Is Yoonji going to die like mom and dad? Boram asked one evening. Tae-Min did not know what to say. The doctors were trying everything, but nothing was working. Yoonji was getting weaker every day. Then Duhayen got sick too. It started the same way. He would not wake up one morning. Then came the seizures. Taemin found him shaking on his bedroom floor and rushed him to the hospital. The doctors ran the same tests. They found the same strange brain activity. Duhayen was put in the bed next to his sister. 2 days later, Boram collapsed at school. Now, all 3 children were in the hospital, connected to machines that beeped and hummed all day and night. The strange illness was destroying their nervous systems, and the doctors had no idea how to stop it. Tae-Min sat in the hallway between their rooms and felt more helpless than he had ever felt in his life. During the war, when his fellow soldiers were hurt, he could help them. He had tools and knowledge and medicine. But this was beyond anything human medicine could handle. Dr. Kim pulled Taemin aside on the 7th day. We have tried everything we know, he said quietly. The illness is getting worse. If we cannot find a cure soon, the children will... He could not finish the sentence. Tae-Min understood. His sister's children, the 3 innocent kids who had already lost their parents, were going to die. and there was nothing he could do to save them. That night, Taemin drove back to his cabin. He had not been home in a week. The empty house felt cold and dark. He sat at his kitchen table and put his head in his hands. The crystal sat in front of him, just as it had for 5 years. It seemed to glow a little brighter tonight, but that was probably just his tired eyes playing tricks on him. Tae-min picked up the crystal and held it in his hands. He thought about Nira's gentle touch and her amazing healing abilities. She had healed his old injuries so easily. Could she heal the children? It was a foolish hope. Even if the crystal worked, even if Nira got his message, what could she do? She was probably light years away. And even if she came, why would she help? The children were not her responsibility. But as Taemin sat in his dark kitchen, listening to the silence, he realized he had no other choice. Human medicine had failed. The children were dying and he could not save them. He had promised So-ra he would take care of her children. He had failed at almost everything else, but maybe, just maybe, Nira could help where he could not. Tae-min closed his eyes and thought about Nira. He remembered her kind eyes and gentle smile. He remembered how she had healed him without asking for anything in return. He remembered how she had given him the crystal and made him promise to use it if he needed help. He needed help. Now more than ever. Tae-min pressed the crystal between his hands and focused all his thoughts on Nira. He thought about the children lying in the hospital. He thought about his love for them and his fear of losing them. He thought about how sorry he was for bothering her, but how desperate he had become. The crystal grew warm in his hands. Then it began to glow with a soft blue light. The light got brighter and brighter until it filled the whole kitchen. Then it pulsed 3 times and went dark. Tae-min stared at the crystal. Had it worked? Had his message reached across space to find Nira? Or had he just imagined the whole thing? He put the crystal back on the table and went to bed. Tomorrow he would return to the hospital and sit with the children. He would hold their hands and tell them stories and hope for a miracle. He did not know if Nira would come. He did not even know if she was still alive. But for the first time in days he felt a tiny spark of hope. Somewhere among the stars his message was traveling through space. Whether it would find Nira, whether she would help, whether she could save the children, those were questions only time could answer. All Taemin could do was wait and pray that the universe still believed in miracles. 3 days after Taemin sent his message, something amazing happened. He was sitting in the hospital cafeteria, drinking bad coffee and trying to stay awake. He had not slept well in weeks. The children were getting worse every day. Little Yoonji had not opened her eyes in 2 days. The doctors were talking about making them comfortable for their final hours. Taemin's phone buzzed. It was a message from his neighbor, Old Man Choi, who lived 5 kilometers down the mountain. Strange lights in the sky above your cabin last night? Very bright? Thought you should know? Taemin felt his heart beat faster. He left his coffee and ran to his truck. The drive up the mountain felt longer than usual. When he reached his cabin, everything looked normal at first. Then he saw footprints in the dirt near his front door. They were small and delicate, not like human footprints. The front door was unlocked. Taemin was sure he had locked it when he left. He pushed the door open slowly. "Hello?" he called softly. "Hello, Taemin." The voice was exactly as he remembered. It, musical and gentle, but now she spoke Korean much better than before. Nira stepped out from the kitchen. She looked exactly the same as she had 5 years ago. Her pale blue skin still glowed softly. Her silver hair still shone like starlight. But there was something different about her now. She looked more confident, more important. "You came," Taemin whispered. "You called for help," Nira said simply. "I promised I would come if you needed me." Behind Nira, 2 other figures appeared. They looked like her but different. One was taller with darker blue skin. The other was shorter with skin that was almost white. They both wore clothes that seemed to be made of light itself. "These are my colleagues," Nira explained. "Vel is our chief medical officer. Zara is our technology specialist. When I received your message, I asked them to come with me." Taemin felt tears in his eyes. "The children are dying. The doctors cannot help them." I did not know what else to do. Nira stepped closer and put her hand on his arm. Her touch was warm and comforting, just as he remembered. Tell me about their illness, she said. Dashman explained everything. The seizures, the strange brain activity, how all three children got sick one after another. Nira listened carefully and asked many questions. When he finished, Nira looked at her colleagues. They spoke together in their musical language for several minutes. We need to see the children, Nira said finally. But we cannot go to your human hospital. Too many people would ask questions we cannot answer. Then how can you help them? Taemin asked desperately. We must bring them here, Vel said in careful Korean. Our ship has medical equipment that can help them. Taemin stared at them. You want me to take 3 dying children out of the hospital? The doctors will try to stop me. The police will arrest me. Do you trust me? Nira asked quietly. Taemin looked into her large, kind eyes. She had saved his life once with her healing touch. She had kept his secret for 5 years. She had crossed space to answer his call for help. Yes, he said, I trust you. Getting the children out of the hospital was the hardest thing Taemin had ever done. He told the doctors he was taking them home to die in peace. The doctors did not like it, but they understood. The children were too sick to save, and sometimes families needed to say goodbye in their own way. Taemin carried Yoonji while nurses helped him move Bo-ram and Do-hyun to his truck. All 3 children were unconscious. They looked so small and fragile, wrapped in hospital blankets. The drive back to the cabin was terrifying. What if the children died on the way? What if Nira's people could not help them either? What if he was making a terrible mistake? But when they reached the cabin, Taemin saw something that made him gasp. A ship sat in the clearing behind his house. It was beautiful and impossible. The hull seemed to be made of silver light. It made no sound, but it hummed with energy that made the air itself feel alive. Nira and her colleagues carried the children into the ship. Inside, it was even more amazing. The walls glowed with soft light. Strange symbols moved across smooth surfaces. Everything looked clean and perfect and far beyond human technology. The medical bay was like nothing Taemin had ever seen. The beds seemed to be made of light itself. Machines that looked like flowing water monitored every part of the children's bodies. Vel placed her hands on Eunji's forehead and closed her eyes. Her hands glowed with the same blue light Taemin remembered from Nira's healing. This is not a natural illness, Vel said after a long moment. Someone has poisoned these children. Poisoned? Taemin asked. But how? They all got sick at different times. Zara was studying readings from her strange machines. The poison is designed to spread slowly through families, she explained. It targets genetic similarities. These children share the same family blood, so they all became sick. But who would poison children? Taemin asked. Nira and her colleagues looked at each other with worried expressions. There are people on your world who know about us, Nira said carefully. They have been watching you since I was here before. When you took the children, they saw an opportunity to test a new weapon. Taemin felt sick. You mean this is my fault? They got sick because of me? No, Nira said firmly. This is the fault of evil people who use children as test subjects. You are not responsible for their cruelty. Vel was working over Yoonji with her glowing hands. Slowly, very slowly, color began to return to the little girl's face. Her breathing became deeper and more regular. Can you cure them? Taemin asked. Yes, Vel said, but it will take time. The poison has damaged their nervous systems badly. We must repair each nerve, each connection in their brains. It is delicate work. For the next 3 days, Nira and her colleagues worked around the clock to heal the children. Taemin stayed with them, watching in amazement as alien technology and healing powers slowly brought the children back from the edge of death. On the 4th day, Yoonji opened her eyes and smiled. Uncle Taemin, she whispered, where are we? Taemin started crying. He could not help it. We are somewhere safe, he said. These are friends who came to help you get better. Bo-ram and Do-hyun woke up the next day. They were weak, but their minds were clear. When they saw Nira and her colleagues, they were not afraid. Children, Taemin realized, were much better at accepting impossible things than adults were. Are you angels? Duram asked Nira. No, Nira said gently. We are just people from far away who wanted to help. Thank you for saving us, Duhyun said. It was the first time Taemin had heard him speak politely in months. As the children recovered, Taemin realized something important Nira had not. Just come to heal the children and leave again. She had brought equipment to stay. She was setting up a permanent base near his cabin. Why? He asked her one evening as they watched the stars together. Because, Nira said simply, I have spent 5 years learning about humans. I have studied your culture, your psychology, your needs, and I learned something important. What? Nira turned to look at him with those amazing eyes. I learned that the kindest human I ever met might need help again someday. And I learned that some families are not made by blood, but by choice. Taemin felt something warm spread through his chest. You want to stay? If you will have me, Nira said. These children need someone who understands healing, both of body and heart. And you need someone who understands you. For the first time. In years, Taemin smiled a real smile. His strange, impossible family was about to become even stranger and more impossible, and he could not wait. 1 year later, life in the mountains had become something Taemin never could have imagined. Nira had built her research station in a hidden valley 2 kilometers from Taemin's cabin. From the outside, it looked like a small house made of local stone and wood. Inside, it was filled with technology that could heal diseases, communicate across galaxies, and study the deepest mysteries of the universe. The children had recovered completely from their illness. More than that, they had grown and changed in ways that amazed Taemin every day. Oram had become fascinated with Nira's medical knowledge. She spent hours learning about alien biology and healing techniques. Nira taught her how different species evolved, how their bodies worked, and how to help when they were hurt. I want to be a doctor like Nira when I grow up, Oram announced one morning over breakfast. But I want to help all kinds of people, not just humans. Duhyun was interested in the technology. He learned how Nira's machines worked and helped her repair equipment. His anger had disappeared completely. Now he spent his free time building robots and dreaming of spaceships. Look what I made, he said proudly, showing Taemin a small device that could translate any language. Nira taught me how to program. The quantum processors, little Yoonji had changed the most. She was no longer the quiet, traumatized child who barely spoke. Now she laughed and played and asked a million questions every day. She had formed a special bond with Nira that was beautiful to watch. Eun-G called Nira Star Mom and followed her everywhere. Nira seemed to love it. She taught Yoonji songs from her home planet and told her stories about life among the stars. Star Mom, will you teach me to glow like you do? Yoonji asked one evening. Human bodies work differently than mine, Nira explained. Gently, but you have something even better. You have the ability to make others feel happy just by being yourself. The children went to school in town during the day, but they spent their evenings and weekends learning amazing things from Nira. The other children at school thought they were making up stories about their alien friend, but their teachers noticed how much smarter and more confident they had become. Taemin watched it all with wonder. He had been so worried about failing as a guardian, but with Nira's help, the children were thriving in ways he never could have achieved alone. More importantly, Taemin himself was healing. The loneliness that had eaten at his heart for years was gone. He had a purpose now that went beyond just surviving each day. Nira had officially become an ambassador between her people and Earth. A small group of government officials knew about her, but they kept it secret while her people studied whether humans were ready for open contact. Your species is very young, Nira explained to Taemin one evening as they sat on his cabin porch. We want to help you grow, but we must be careful. Some humans would use our technology to hurt others, like the people who poisoned the children? Taemin asked. Yes, we are watching them now. They will not hurt anyone else. Taemin had learned not to ask too many questions about Nira's work. Some things were beyond his understanding, and some things were too dangerous for him to know. What mattered was that she was here, helping his family become stronger and happier every day. The relationship between Taemin and Nira had grown into something deeper than friendship, but different from romance. They were partners in raising the children. They shared the daily work of cooking and cleaning and homework help. They made decisions together about what was best for Bioram Duhayan. And UN-G. At night, when the children were asleep, they would sit together and talk about their days. Nira would tell him about her research or messages from her home planet. Taemin would share his thoughts about the children's progress or problems he was having at work. They were comfortable together in a way that felt completely natural. Taemin had stopped thinking about what other people might say about his strange family. This was his life now, and it was good. One evening in late autumn, as the first snow began to fall, the children made an announcement. "We want to have a family meeting," Bioram said seriously. They all gathered in the living room. The children sat together on the couch while Taemin and Nira took chairs facing them. "We have been talking," Duhayan said, "and we want to know something important." "What do you want to know?" Taemin asked. Little Yoonji stood up and looked at both Taemin and Nira with her big, serious eyes. "Are you going to be our family forever?" she asked. "Or will Star Mom have to go away someday?" Taemin looked at Nira. They had talked about this question many times, but always privately. Now the children were asking directly, and they deserved an honest answer. "What do you think?" Nira asked the children gently. "Do you want me to stay forever?" "Yes," all three children said at once. "Then I will stay," Nira said simply. "My people have given me permission to make Earth my home. As long as you and Uncle Taemin want me here, this is where I belong." Bioram started crying happy tears. Duhayan grinned wider than Taemin had ever seen. Yoonji jumped up and hugged Nira tightly. "Does this mean we are a real family now?" Yoonji asked. Tae-Min felt his own eyes getting wet. "We have been a real family for a long time," he said. "Now we are just making it official." That night, after the children were asleep, Taemin and Nira stood outside looking up at the stars. "Do you ever regret it?" Taemin asked. "Giving up your old life to stay here with us?" Nira was quiet for a long moment. "On my home planet, I was respected for my healing abilities," she said finally. "I had important work and many colleagues. But I was not truly happy." She pointed up at a bright star in the northern sky. "That is my home star. I can see it every night from here. But when I look at it, I do not feel homesick. This is my home now." "Even though we are just ordinary humans?" Taemin asked. Nira turned to look at him with those amazing eyes that had first captured his heart years ago. "You saved my life when you had every reason to be afraid of me," she said. "You kept my secret when it would have been easier to turn me over to your authorities. You called for my help when children were dying, even though you had no guarantee I would come." She took his hand in hers. Her skin was still warm and soft, still faintly glowing. "There is nothing ordinary about a man who shows such kindness to a stranger," Nira continued. "There is nothing ordinary about children who accept someone different without fear or hatred. Your family taught me what love really means." Taemin squeezed her hand gently. "You taught us the same thing." Above them, the stars shone down on a small mountain cabin where an impossible family slept peacefully. A human ranger who had found his purpose, 3 orphan children who had learned to laugh again, and an alien woman who had discovered that home was not a place among the stars, but the people who chose to love you exactly as you are. In the years to come, Bioram would become the first human doctor trained in alien medicine. Duhayan would help design the ships that would take humans to the stars. Yoonji would become an ambassador like Nira, helping different species understand each other. And Taemin would watch it all with pride, knowing that sometimes the most important thing you can do is simply be kind to a stranger who needs help, because you never know when that stranger might give you a family you never knew you needed.